Hi guys, my name is Matigela. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I want us to talk about Makosonke Zungu's testimony. Makosonke Zungu's testimony, it just blew up the state case. My goodness, it just blew up the state case, and in a way that we can never. I don't think we imagined the way things are or how he was. First of all, big up to Makosonke, big up to Makosonke because he is so eloquent. He is so clear, crystal clear. He is so on point. You can hear what he's saying. And the one thing that I like about him, he understands the English language. He speaks it fluently, so yes. So there is no way that they are going to trouble him. He understands, even though there is an interpreter, but at least he understands. And I'm sure he will tell the interpreter, Okuti, no, that's not what I said. That's not what I meant. I'm sure he's gonna do such things there. He is very confident. He is not arrogant. That is what I like about the Zungus. The only Zungu that was arrogant is the constable, their grandfather, Mr. Umkulu, Unhlahlezi Zungu, Baba Unhlahlezi Zungu was never arrogant. Ugwabini Sfiso Zungu was never arrogant. Now we have Umakosenge, he's not arrogant also. I like that about them. They are very humble people, the Zungu clan. Seemingly, they are very humble people. And it also shows Kuti that one was indeed not raised in Mahlabatini. That is why he's like that. Anyway, getting to what happened today in court. The state's case in the Senzo Meyiwa trial is no longer collapsing from the outside. No, it's not outside, don't. No, no, no. It's collapsing from inside. Just inside, from within, it's collapsing there. What happened in court with Makosonke Zungu is not just another contradiction. It was a structural failure. Baloyi was so embarrassed. He was looking down as if it's a demon seeing Jesus Christ. He was looking like this. He even swapped seats with Usibanda, the doctor. Advocate Sibanda. They even swapped seats. I suppose it's Sibanda that is going to question, to cross-examine Makosonke because Baloyi feels some type of way, perhaps conflicted. I don't know, because his name is popping out a lot there. A lot there. My goodness. And now, because for the first time, a state witness didn't merely weaken the prosecution's version. He detonated the very foundation on which it was built. You know, the state case was built from Constable Zungu calling this guy Makosong and them going to the castle to the Braai place. Where is that? The hostel. And what he said has consequences for all 5 accused. Let's check on that. First of all, let's talk about the Braai narrative. The hostel, okay, not the Braai first, the hostel narrative. For years, the state has anchored its theory on one critical claim, that the accused gathered at the Vosloorus hostel to plan Senzo Meyiwa's murder. That narrative rests highly or heavily on the testimony of Constable Zungu. Constable Sizwe Zungu, that's where it rests. He told the court that Makosonke Zungu was present at the hostel with the accused, that he witnessed suspicious conduct, and that this gathering was part of the planning phase of the crime. But then Makosonke Zungu took the stand today, and he said something that should have stopped the trial in its tracks. But Ubaloyi is clearly a very stubborn man. He denied being at the Vosloorus hostel on the day Senzo Meyiwa was shot and killed. He denied seeing any of the accused there. He denied acknowledging any knowledge, of the meeting. He denied any knowledge of the planning. And he said the police already knew he was not present. My God. My goodness. That is not defense versus state, Gesana. You must remember that. That is not defense versus state. This is a state witness. You must remember that Makosonke was on the list of state witnesses. He is another witness, the third witness that Brigadier Bongani Gininda said he will corroborate Zungu, the constable. What are we seeing now? That alone creates a reasonable doubt, of course, but what followed was even more damaging for the state case. It was even more damaging. Allegations of police misconduct. Let's break down also that, Kesana. Makosonke Zungu testified that he was detained without being told what he was being charged with. He did the fingerprints and everything at Kempton Park Police Station. They fetched him from Beggarsport. On your way to Limpopo, R37, Sanalam, he says he was interrogated multiple times. He was eventually asked to sign a statement that was never read to him. And because he was not clued up about things of arrest, he's not a criminal. So he knew nothing about those things. Yeah, he was fearful. Of course, they used the thing of arresting him and putting him in a cell. His brain, Jay, was not in the right mind. That we need to also take into consideration. And he was, so he didn't know. So when they said sign, he was like, okay, let me sign, because already the first police officer who spoke to him, it was Mabena, and he was very aggressive, swearing at him, calling him a dog, blah, 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 blah. All of that shindy that happened. Mind you, when all of this thing of the state taking of the statement was happening, there was no interpreter for him. There was no legal counsel for him. There was no explanation for him. And then came the most explosive allegation of all. He told the court that police officer demanded 5,000 rand. Mugane, when they decided to release him, Mugane wanted a bribe for him, saying that I did you a favor by cleaning your fingerprints. And then he got a letter. Kininda promised him, I think Kininda gave him a letter saying that he's been cleared of the murder charge. Oh, he first got a call was being told by someone that called themselves, which I think it could have been Maben. But then again, we need to hear from him. Was the person a woman that made that call, or was the person a man? What number was used to call? Was it a 01 Tonton from that side he was from, or was it a 011 or a 012 number? Those details, they need to be understood. And then he also mentioned that he got that call regarding, you have a case that we are investigating of rape, of SAing someone for 2008. And he was shocked. And then Jiggy, he gets another call, missed calls now from his team leader or a supervisor, shift supervisor, telling him, listen, man, can I see you? Please come to my house. I need to speak to you. When he goes there, this guy tells him, actually, we can't speak here at my house because there are kids and my wife. Let's find a space, a quiet place. They go for drinks. When they get in this space, he tells him, listen, I got a call. I was told there was a call that came in that says, when you are wanted for murder. So the modus operandi that was created by the cops is out of this world. Way out of this world. So he got arrested for that. And then everything else happened. So now, when he was being released from them taking statements, of which already putting him in a cell is intimidation. It's a form of intimidation. So he says that then when he was let go and he was being taken home, Mugane phoned him, told Mugane before, in fact, tells him that, you see, I cleaned up your stupa and your fingerprints, so that means you owe me a cow. He's like, what kind of a cow? He's like, you can give me 5,000 rands to clear your thumbs. Mugane. Dangerous, that one. So that comes out and it's police misconduct. So in plain language, pay a bribe and you won't be implicated. That's what Mugane did. That is evidence of investigative corruption. Top notch. Yes, Anala. Top notch. And it aligns perfectly with what this trial has already revealed. coerced statements, witnesses disowning prior versions, repudiated tip-offs, and allegations of assault and intimidation. So he's collaborating. Accused number 1, accused number 2, Babu Zungu, Gwabini. All 4 of them, they've been corroborated by him with all of those don't. So this is not just sloppy policing. This is a narrative that has been manufactured. And uMngomezulu touched on this. He said it not once, not twice, so many times that the case against the 5 accused has been manufactured. As if that was not enough. He told them he doesn't know anything about the crime when they were asking him. Makhosonke Zungu did not stop there, Kesan. He told the court that he had no knowledge of anything regarding the accused. Mafika, Muzi, or Gwabini allegedly said about the matter. He knows nothing about that. He said the police knew he wasn't present. Remember, he mentioned that Bongani Yende told him, I know you were not there. Just please make sure when you get there, you only agree to what you know. If you don't know the pictures they are going to show you, don't you dare say you do. And then he said he wasn't part of any discussion about the so-called murder. He said he wasn't part of any meeting. He said he wasn't part of any planning. And that matters because the state's case depends on stitching together a story of coordination and conspiracy. And it's not coming true. And it's not coming true. And if the planning never happened, then the entire theory of joint enterprise collapses dismally. And also, when it comes to this entire situation, what we look at also now is the impact of the state's credibility. This testimony does not just create a small crack on the Senzo Meyiwa case; it creates credibility crater. Constable Sizwe Zungu's testimony was central to placing the accused at the hostel. Makhosonke Zungu's denial demolishes that narrative altogether. And when a state witness contradicts another state witness on a core fact, the court is not allowed to ignore it. It must resolve it because now we have Gwabini and now we have Makhosonke. Both of them, they were supposedly there at the hostel, and Gwabini was supposed to be the host. Yet both of them, they know nothing about this narrative. And there is no clean way to resolve this contradiction without considering that at least one of these witnesses is lying. Now it's 2 against 1. So that means the one that is lying is Constable Zungu, and that is vital to a prosecution case. They must just agree. And also, let's talk about the due process and the admissibility. The legal implications are devastating. Statements obtained without being read, without an interpreter, without a defense counsel or a legal counsel, under alleged coercion, under alleged extortion. There's a lot that is going on and are constitutionally inadmissible. If the court accepts even part of Makhosonke Zungu's account, entire statements may be excluded. Chains of evidence may collapse. Prior witness versions become suspicious. The integrity of the investigation itself comes into question. This is how cases die in court, not with drama, with procedure. So uJudge Ratha, if he is a listening judge, as he always says, that means those are the things that he must look into. Now let's look at the pattern, not an anomaly, because this, oh my word, this is not an isolated incident. Makhosonke Zungu now joins a growing list of witnesses who have contradicted the state, disowned statements, denied voluntariness, repudiated alleged tip-offs, and exposed investigative pressure. Courts don't treat that as coincidence. They treat it as a pattern because this is a pattern. The pattern are how judges determine whether a case is merely weak or fundamentally contaminated, which is exactly the case on this one. And also, let's also check the impact that all of this has on each of the accused. Let's be precise about what it means. For Bongani Ntanzi, the state is placing him First, Bongani, sorry, Muzi Sibiya, the state is placing him at the hostel. Makosonke Zungu says he was never there and never saw Muzi Sibiya at the hostel. That collapses the timeline and the alleged coordination. Same thing for Ndanzi. Same thing for Ndanzi. And also, I choose number 3, Mthobisi Mncube. The state alleges he was part of the planning group. If the hostel meeting never happened, that allegation collapses with it. Number 4, I choose number 4, Mthokoziseni Mapisa. His alleged involvement depends on being part of that gathering. Zungu's denial supports the defense claim that Mapisa was never there. So if who's the guy, Umakosonke says, no, there was no 2014. He even says, 2014, don't even ask me about 2014. There is no 2014. I didn't even know this guy for 2014. And then I choose number 5, Fiso Kuhlentuli. The state portrays him as the central conspirator. But without a meeting, there is no conspiracy, no coordination, no shared intent. Well, also, when it comes to, I choose number 5, Fiso Kuhlentuli, Makosonke doesn't address the shooting directly, but he destroys the state's theory of how the shooting came to happen without planning. Motive becomes speculative. Okay, that is Constable Zungu now. He doesn't address the shooting directly, right? But he destroys the state's theory of how the shooting came to happen without planning. So because without planning, motive becomes speculative. Coordination becomes imaginary. The hit narrative collapses, and even the triggerman allegation becomes unstable. Because what do you mean? What do you mean if the people that are supposedly were there with them don't know? In fact, the worst part of it all is that Gwabini and who's this one? And Makosonke don't even know Mthobisi Mncube. Now, this is the foundation of the state case, and now it's in front of our very own eyes. It's just like that. This testimony doesn't just poke holes in the state case, it challenges its foundation. It undermines the alleged hostel meeting, the planning narrative, the voluntariness of the statements, the credibility of police witnesses, the integrity of the investigation, and the reliability of the prosecution's timeline. Something is wrong there. This is not what a surviving case looks like. This is what a structural compromise case looks like. And also, when it comes to defense, the way they're strategic when it comes to everything, from this point forward, the defense can legitimately argue that the accused were framed or misidentified, that witnesses were pressurized into naming them, that statements were unlawfully obtained, that evidence was contaminated, that investigation chased a predetermined narrative, that state version is not just weak but manufactured, and that's the only way to go forward now when it comes to this, because the state is getting exposed. They need to go back. Is it possible for them to go back to a 174 argument waiting? Because, wow, can they do that? Can they go back to applying for 174? And lastly, the last point that I want to touch on is that justice for Senzo Meyiwa cannot be achieved through shortcuts, coercion, or narrative management. It requires lawful investigations, credible evidence, and a fair process. That is what he deserves. Makosonke Zungu's testimony just exposed how far this case has drifted from those standards. This is no longer a trial about who pulled the trigger. It is now about whether the state's case is real at all. And it is now looking at South Africans like, are you seeing what I feel as a case? It is collapsing. And right now, it is collapsing under its own contradictions. That is how bad the situation has become. What are your thoughts when it comes to this? Let's talk comment section. I will see you on our next video. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.